my husband and I decided to celebrate our wedding anniversary at an expensive restaurant. After I came out of the restaurant restroom after urgent matters, a woman approached me with the words, "Don't drink from your cup. Your husband poured something into it from a strange vial." I thanked her for this information and decided to discreetly swap my glass for my husband's glass. But in 20 minutes, I always believed that our marriage with Artyom was perfect. We met at an economic forum 5 years ago, when we were both just starting our journey in business. Artyom was then engaged in dropshipping on Shopify, and I was looking for a new direction for development. We immediately found common ground. I remember how, after a tedious lecture on marketing strategies, he approached me with a cup of coffee and said, "You look so we're diligently taking notes. In your eyes, there was more understanding of the topic than in the speakers." These words won me over with their sincerity, and our conversation dragged on for several hours. We discussed business ideas, shared experiences, and by the end of the day, we decided to launch a new project together. And 6 months later, Artyom proposed to me. We always celebrated our wedding anniversary in a big way. This time, Artyom booked a table at Beluga, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. Everything seemed so perfect. Artyom was especially gallant and attentive, gave compliments, admired my new dress. During dinner, he proposed a toast to our 5th year together and to the prosperity of our common business. We drank champagne, and I felt a warmth spreading inside warmth from his words and from the thought that we had built so much together. I looked into his eyes, trying to find in them a reflection of my love, and it seemed to me that we were really created for each other. About an hour after the start of dinner, I excused myself and headed to the restroom. I remember looking at myself in the mirror, touching up my makeup and thinking about how lucky I was with my husband, how caring and devoted he is to our relationship. These thoughts were interrupted by a strange woman who literally grew behind my back. She was elegantly dressed, about my age, but something in her eyes made me wary. "Excuse me for bothering you," she began in a quiet voice. "I know this will sound strange, but I have to warn you, don't drink from your mug. Your husband poured something from a strange vial when you stepped away." I felt like the ground was slipping from under my feet. My first impulse was to be outraged, to dismiss this woman as crazy, but something in her face, in her eyes, wouldn't let me do that. There was no gloating or desire to sow discord, rather sincere concern. "Who are you? Why should I believe you?" I asked, trying to speak calmly, although my heart was ready to jump out of my chest. "My name is Vera. I know your husband. Better than you think," she replied, and a bitterness flashed in her voice. "I don't have time to explain, but if you value your life, don't drink from your glass. And please don't tell him that I talked to you." Without waiting for my reaction, she quickly left the restroom, leaving me in complete bewilderment. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, trying to make sense of what I had heard. Artyom, my Artyom, with whom we had lived for 5 years, who was always so gentle and caring, could slip something into my drink, seemed absurd. But what if this woman is telling the truth? What if my life is really in danger? I took a deep breath and tried to calm down. I need to think rationally, I told myself. If Artyom really slipped something into my glass, I can check it just by switching our glasses. If nothing happens, then that Vera was lying, and I will just forget about this incident. With this thought, I returned to the hall. Artyom met me with a smile, but it seemed to me that in his eyes, something flashed, something elusive, tension, impatience. I couldn't say exactly, but suddenly I started noticing details that I hadn't noticed before. Our table was in the corner of the room, quite secluded, the perfect place for a romantic dinner or something more sinister. My glass was in the same place where I left it. The wine was a dark ruby color. Artyom was drinking the same thing, but his glass was only about a third full. I sat down, continuing the conversation as if nothing had happened, but my brain was racing, trying to figure out a way to discreetly switch our glasses. "You know, I think we should discuss expanding the business," Artyom began, and I noticed how his gaze kept stopping on my glass. "I have some interesting ideas that can take us to the next level." "Sounds tempting," I replied, smiling. "What specific ideas?" While he was talking about potential investors and new markets, I subtly moved my purse so it fell off the table. Artyom, as expected, leaned down to pick it up. At that moment, I quickly switched our glasses. "Thank you, dear," I said, taking the purse from his hands. "To new horizons." I raised the glass, which was now his, for a toast. Artyom hesitated slightly, but then smiled and raised the glass, which was mine. "To us," he said, and we drank. I took a small sip, carefully watching his reaction. Artem drank almost half the glass. If what Vera said is true, then now the poison was in his body. I felt nausea from this thought, but forced myself to remain calm. The next 20 minutes passed as if in a fog. We talked about some trifles, about plans for the future, but I noticed that Artem was becoming more and more anxious. His forehead was covered in sweat, and his hands began to tremble slightly. "Are you feeling all right?" I asked with genuine concern. Despite everything, he was my husband, and the thought that he might be unwell tore my heart apart. "Yes, it's just a little hot in here," he replied, loosening his tie. "Maybe I should go out for some fresh air." I nodded, and he got up from the table, but didn't manage to take even a couple of steps when he staggered heavily. I barely managed to catch him, preventing a fall. "Artem, what's wrong with you?" I exclaimed, supporting him. "I don't know, I feel strange." His voice became weak, and his gaze became clouded. And then a terrible thought pierced me. What was in the glass was actually poison, and my husband really planned to kill me on our wedding anniversary. I looked into the eyes of the man I thought I knew better than myself, and saw fear in them. But not just fear from physical discomfort. It was the fear of exposure, the fear of a person whose dark plans had suddenly turned against himself. "We need to call an ambulance," I said, and there was no fear or anger in my voice, only determination. Determination to find out the truth, no matter how terrible it may be. Artem lost consciousness right in the restaurant. His condition was rapidly deteriorating. People around began to panic. Someone called an ambulance. The restaurant manager ran to us with a first aid kit. Everything happened so quickly that I didn't have time to realize the full horror of the situation. I mechanically answered questions, gave instructions to the restaurant staff, held Artyom's hand, checking his pulse. Outwardly, I was composed and acted effectively, but inside, a hurricane of emotions was raging. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. Paramedics quickly assessed Artyom's condition, connected some devices, began to administer medications. I looked at my husband's pale face and couldn't believe that all this was really happening. One of the paramedics asked me if Artyom had taken any medications, if he had any allergies, if he had complained about feeling unwell before he lost consciousness. "No," I replied. "We were celebrating our wedding anniversary." He drank wine and suddenly felt ill. I almost told the truth, almost confessed that I had deliberately switched the glasses, because a stranger had warned me about the danger. But something stopped me. Intuition or self-preservation instinct, I don't know, but I remained silent. Artem was loaded onto a stretcher and carried to the ambulance. I followed them, still not believing in the reality of what was happening. In the car, the medic continued to ask questions, and I answered automatically, like a robot. My brain was trying to process what had happened, to find a logical explanation that did not include my husband's attempt to poison me. Maybe this woman Vera was wrong. Maybe she herself mixed something into our drinks, or is this some terrible misunderstanding? I clung to any straw that could justify Artyom, preserve my faith in our marriage, in our love. But deep inside, I knew the truth, and that truth was too scary to admit it right away. At the hospital, Artyom was immediately taken to intensive care. I was asked to wait in the corridor and fill out some forms. I sat on a plastic chair, mechanically entering data in the form, and my head was in complete chaos. The doctor came out to me about an hour later. His face was serious. "Your husband is stabilized, but his condition is serious," he said. "He has clear signs of poisoning." We took tests to determine the exact substance. "Do you know what he might have taken?" I shook my head. We were in a restaurant, drinking interest and human compassion. "Ms. Kovaleva, in such cases we are obliged to notify the police," he said quietly. "This is standard procedure when suspecting poisoning by an unknown substance." I felt a chill run down my spine. Police, investigation, questions that I don't have answers to, or rather, answers that I'm afraid to voice. "I understand," I replied, trying to keep my voice sounding calm. "Do whatever is necessary." The doctor nodded and left, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I took out my phone and saw several missed calls from an unfamiliar number. Intuition suggested that this was Vera, the woman from the restaurant, trying to contact me. But I wasn't ready to talk to her. Not now, when my life was collapsing on eyes. Instead, I opened the photos on my phone and started flipping through snapshots taken over the years of our marriage with Artem. Here we are at a ball, sunbathing on the beach. Here we are celebrating the successful conclusion of a major deal for our business. business. Here at last year's anniversary, I am blowing out candles on the cake, and Artem looks at me with such tenderness. Or did it just seem to me that it was tenderness? I was trying to find answers in these photos, to see the moment when everything went wrong, when my loving husband turned into a person capable of coldly planning my murder. The phone vibrated again, the same unknown number. This time I decided to answer. "Hello," I said, and my voice sounded like someone else's. "Ksenia, this is Vera. I need to talk to you not on the phone. It concerns your husband and of what happened today." I wavered whether to trust a stranger, who may have just saved my life, or to trust my instincts to keep everything a secret until I myself sort out the situation. In the end, curiosity and thirst for truth won. "Okay," I said. "Where and when?" "Tomorrow at 10 a.m. The Legend Cafe on Pushkin Street. Come alone and be careful." "What happened today? This is just the beginning." She hung up, not waiting for my answer. I was sitting in the hospital corridor, clutching the phone in my hand, and felt how reality was slipping away from me. What exactly does this woman know? How is she connected to Artem? And most importantly, what does "this is just the beginning" mean? Minutes turned into hours. I continued to sit in the hospital corridor, immersed in my thoughts, trying to collect the fragments of shattered reality into some kind of coherent picture. The nurse periodically came out to inform me about Artem's condition. "Stable but serious," she said. "Doctors are doing everything possible." Around midnight, 2 men in civilian clothes approached me. They introduced themselves as police officers and asked me to go with them to the station to give a statement regarding the incident at the restaurant. I didn't argue. Perhaps it was even for the best. In the hospital, I felt like in a trap, alone with my thoughts and fears. At the police station, they led me to a small room for interrogations. The setting was modest. A table, a few chairs, a mirror on the wall, which I suspected was one-sided. One of the detectives, who introduced himself as Igor Sergeyevich, started asking standard questions at first. "How long have you been married to Artem? Did we have conflicts? How did it go the evening at the restaurant before the incident?" I answered honestly, but did not mention Vera's warning and that I switched the glasses. Part of me still couldn't believe what was happening, and another part was afraid that, if I told the truth, I would be under suspicion myself. "Mrs. Kovaleva," said the detective after a series of questions, "the doctors reported to us that in your husband's body traces of a potent drug have been found, which could have been used for poisoning. Do you have any idea where this substance could have come from?" I felt something inside. Everything is tightening. Moment of truth. To tell them about the faith and the switched glasses, or continue to pretend that I don't know anything? "No," I finally replied. "We were just having dinner. Everything was normal, and then he got sick." The detective nodded, making a note in his notebook. "Your husband is in business, right? What kind?" "Yes, we have a joint business. Dropshipping through the Shopify platform. We have been doing this for several years." "Did your husband have conflicts with partners or competitors? Maybe someone threatened him?" I thought about it. In the 5 years of our joint business, there have been different situations, but nothing so serious as to resort to poisoning. There's nothing like that. Ordinary business disagreements, but without threats or open hostility. The detective continued record, and I caught myself thinking that it all seemed like some kind of surreal dream. Just this morning, I was a happy wife, preparing to celebrate our wedding anniversary, and now I'm sitting in a police station, answering questions about the possible poisoning of my husband. "Mrs. Kovaleva," the detective leaned towards me, and his voice became quieter. "I have to ask you directly, did you have any reason to wish your husband dead?" Was I so shocked that my voice broke? Of course not. We love each other. We have a wonderful relationship. But even as I spoke these words, I felt their falseness. If we have such a wonderful relationship, why did Artem try to poison me? What happened to our love? To our marriage? The detective carefully watched my reaction. "Just standard questions," he said. "We must consider all possible versions, including the one where the poison was not intended for your husband, but for you. But for some reason, he ingested the substance himself." I felt the blood drain from my face. They already suspect something, either based on medical tests or by questioning the restaurant staff. "That's absurd," I said, trying to sound confident. "Why would Artyom try to poison me?" "That's exactly what we're trying to find out, Mrs. Kovaleva," the detective replied. "Your husband has significant insurance in case of your death." My heart skipped a beat. Insurance. I remembered how several months ago, Artyom insisted that we take out insurance policies for large sums. It's a reasonable precaution for people of our status. He said then, we must be sure that in the event of something unforeseen, the other will not be left without support. Yes, I answered quietly. We both have insurance policies. The detective nodded again, continuing to take notes. We will check this information. In the meantime, you are free, Mrs. Kovaleva, but please do not leave the city and be available for further questions. I nodded, feeling a strange relief that the interrogation was over. Can I return to the hospital to my husband? Of course, we have no reason to detain you, but keep in mind that the investigation is just beginning. We will carefully examine all the circumstances of this incident. I left the police station with a heavy heart. It was already deep evening. A light rain was drizzling. I called a taxi and asked it to take me back to the hospital. On the way, I checked my phone again. No new calls or messages from the number Vera called from. Only a few missed calls from colleagues and friends, probably already having heard the news. At the hospital, I was informed that Artyom had regained consciousness, but was still very weak. I was allowed a short visit. I stood at the door of his ward, gathering my strength. What would I say to the person who probably tried to kill me? How would I look him in the eyes? Taking a deep breath, I entered the ward. Artyom was lying on a hospital bed, pale, with dark circles under his eyes. He was connected to some kind of equipment, monitoring his condition. When I entered, he slowly turned his head in my side. Ksenia, his voice was weak, almost a whisper. What happened? I came closer, trying to maintain calm. Don't you remember we were in a restaurant, celebrating our anniversary, and you suddenly felt ill? His eyes were cloudy, his gaze wandered. I remember the restaurant, the toasts, and then nothing. He seemed genuinely confused, but could it be pretense? I didn't know what to believe, whom to believe. My husband, the man I shared a bed with whom I built a business and planned a future, turned out to be a stranger. Doctors say they found some substance in your blood, I said cautiously, watching his reaction. They believe you were poisoned. His eyes widened. Poisoned? But who? How? I was hoping you would tell me, I replied, and for the first time in my voice there was a hint of bitterness. Artyom, what is happening? Is there something I should know? He closed his eyes as if in pain. I don't know. My head is spinning. I can't think clearly. I wasn't sure if it was true, or if he was just avoiding the answer. But in his condition, it was impossible to push too hard. Rest, I said. We'll talk when you're better. I was about to leave, when he suddenly grabbed my hand. His grip was weak, but desperate. Ksenia, be careful, he whispered. They might come for you now. Who? Artyom. Who might come for me? But his eyes had already closed. His hand fell helplessly. He lost consciousness again or just fell asleep. I wasn't sure. I left the ward with more questions than before the visit. Who are they? Who is Artyom afraid of? And how is all this connected to the attempted poisoning in the restaurant? The nurse told me that Artyom would be in the hospital for at least a few days. I was advised to go home and rest, return in the morning when he would be more stable. I took a taxi to our apartment, mentally preparing for a sleepless night, full of anxiety and uncertainty. But when I entered the empty apartment, I was overwhelmed by a feeling of deep loneliness. All these years, the wrong person I thought I knew was next to me. This realization was more painful than the very fact of the attempted poisoning. I didn't turn on the main light, just a small lamp in the hallway. Dropped my bag on the sofa and headed to the bedroom. But at the very door, she stopped, struck by a sudden thought. If Artyom was planning my poisoning, perhaps there are clues in this apartment, evidence of his criminal intentions. I began to systematically search the apartment, starting with his desk. I sorted through papers, checked drawers, looking for something suspicious. And there, in the very bottom drawer of the desk, under a stack of documents, I found a small vial without a label. My heart beat faster. This could be the very vial from which Artyom poured the poison into my glass. I didn't open the vial, I just put it in a plastic bag, planning to hand it over to the police. Continuing my search, I checked his computer, but it was protected by a password that I didn't know. This was strange, because we never had secrets from each other. We knew each other's passwords. In the bedroom, checking the pockets of his jackets, I found a business card with the name Vera Lisovskaya and a phone number. The same number that called me. On the back of the business card was written by hand, "Plan B is ready. Tomorrow everything will be over." It was a stunning discovery. So Vera and Artem knew each other. Maybe they were even in collusion. But then why did she warn me? Something doesn't add up here. The puzzle was incomplete. I sat on the bed, trying to put all the facts together. Artem was planning to poison me. Vera, who obviously knew about this plan, warned me. I switched the glasses, and Artem himself drank the poisoned wine. And now he's in the hospital, and I'm looking for answers to questions that we'll never should have asked. My gaze fell on our joint photo on the bedside table. We're laughing, hugging, looking so happy. How could everything change so much? When did our love turn into this nightmare of deceit and betrayal? I picked up the phone and dialed Vera's number. After a few rings, she answered. "I found your business card," I said without preamble. "You knew my husband. Were you in cahoots with him?" The pause on the other end was short. "Not on the phone," she replied. "Meet me tomorrow as agreed. I will answer all your questions. Only, please, be careful. Don't trust anyone." She hung up, leaving me in even more confusion. I felt like a character in a spy thriller where no one can be trusted, where every word can be a trap. I took a shower, trying to wash off all this horrible day, but the feeling of betrayal didn't wash away with water. It was etched into my skin, my mind, my soul. Lying in bed, I couldn't fall asleep. Thoughts swirled in my head like autumn leaves in the wind. Artem, our marriage, our business, his words in the hospital, the mysterious Vera, the business card with the creepy inscription. All this formed a picture that I didn't want to see, that I didn't want to believe. Towards morning, when it began to dawn outside, I made a decision. I must find out the truth, no matter how terrible it is. I must find out why the man who vowed to love me until death wanted to bring that death closer. "You changed a lot yesterday," Vera said. When we met at the Legend Cafe on the next morning, I chose a table in the corner, away from the windows and other visitors. Vera arrived exactly on time. She was dressed modestly, but tastefully, looked tired and tense. "What exactly did I change?" I asked, trying to understand who I was dealing with. A friend, an enemy, an accomplice, a victim? Vera took a sip of coffee before answering. "Your husband's plan. It was supposed to work perfectly. You drink poison wine, and after a few hours you die from supposedly natural causes, exacerbated by alcohol and food. And the next day Artem receives insurance of $2 million and disappears. How do you know all this?" I tried to speak calmly, but my hands were shaking, and I hid them under the table, because I was supposed to be his alibi. Vera replied, looking me right in the eyes. "I had to confirm that, at the moment of your death, he was with me. I felt like the ground was slipping from under my feet. It's one thing to suspect that your husband wanted to kill you, and quite another to hear confirmation of this from his accomplice. Are you his mistress?" The question burst out before I could think. Vera slightly smiled, but there was no glee in her smile. "No, I didn't sleep with your husband, if that's what worries you. Our relationship was businesslike. I am a specialist in insurance law. Artem contacted me several months ago to consult about insurance payments in the event of the death of a spouse. At first I thought it was a normal consultation, but then I realized that he was planning a murder. And you agreed to help him?" I didn't hide the shock and disgust in her voice. "No, of course not, no." Vera looked offended. When I realized what he was planning, I wanted to go to the police, but I didn't have any proof, only suspicions. Artem never directly talked about murder. He was very careful with his wording. I decided to follow him, collect evidence, and yesterday, when I saw you with him in the restaurant, I realized that this was the day he was talking about. I remembered the business card I found in Artem's things. And what does Plan B is ready mean? What is this plan? Vera sighed. Plan B was in case something went wrong with the poisoning. I don't know the details, but Artem hinted at some kind of accident that was supposed to happen to you in the coming days. Maybe an accident or something like that. My head started to spin. Artem didn't just want to kill me. He had a backup plan in case of failure. But why? I asked, and my voice trembled. We were happy. We had a successful business. We loved each other. At least I loved him. Vera took a folder out of her bag and put it on the table. That's why. Your business is on the verge of bankruptcy. Artem pulled off several risky deals that failed. He got into debt, borrowed money from very dangerous people. These people don't forgive debts. The only way for him to pay is your insurance. I opened the folder and saw copies of financial documents, bank statements, loan agreements. Everything looked authentic and everything pointed to the fact that our business is in catastrophic situation. How did you get these documents? I asked, flipping through the pages. I have connections in the financial world. When I started to suspect Artem, I conducted my own investigation, and you decided to save me, a stranger, instead of helping Artem get the money and pay off his debts. Vera looked at me with surprise. Would you have preferred that I let him kill you? No, of course not. I'm just trying to understand your motivation. The motivation is simple. I didn't want to be an accomplice to murder. And yes, I didn't want an innocent person to die because of her husband's financial problems. I continued to study the documents, trying to make sense of all the information. If all this is true, then my world hasn't just turned upside down. It has completely collapsed. What should I do now? I asked, raising my eyes to Vera. Go to the police, she replied without hesitation. Tell them everything, hand over these documents and that vial that you found. Let them investigate. Let Artem answer for what he tried to do. The thought of officially accusing her husband of attempted murder was almost unbearable. Despite everything that I learned, part of me still loved him, still remembered the happy moments we shared. And if I don't want him to go to jail? I asked quietly. If I just want to leave him, get a divorce and start a new life? Vera looked at me carefully. You can try, but those people to whom he owes money won't disappear. If they realize that the only way for Artem to pay your death, then you will be in danger. They might take matters into their own hands. These words sent a chill down my spine. Do you think they might try to kill me? I don't know for sure, but the risk exists. Therefore, the best option for you is to go to the police, get protection, and help put Artem behind bars. This will give you time to deal with everything else. I sighed, feeling the weight of making this decision. I need to think. This is all too much for me right now. Vera nodded understandingly. Of course, but don't delay. The longer you wait, the more you risk. And also, stay away from your apartment. Find a safe place and stay there until everything is resolved. We exchanged contacts, and Vera promised to be in communication. When she left, I stayed sitting in the cafe, sorting through documents and trying to gather my thoughts into some semblance of order. My life had turned into a nightmare. The person I trusted more than anyone in the world turned out to be capable of the worst betrayal. Our business, which I considered successful, was on the brink of the abyss. And now, perhaps my life was in danger not only from my husband, but also from unknown creditors. I had to make a decision, and that decision could cost me everything I had. After talking to Vera, I felt like in a fog. The reality around seemed shaky, unreliable. I didn't go to the hospital to Artem, wasn't ready to see him, talk to him, pretend that everything is okay. Instead, I called to my old friend Marina and asked if I could stay at her place for a few days. She didn't ask any unnecessary questions, just said, "Of course, come over." I arrived at Marina's apartment with one small bag, where I packed the most necessary things. A folder with documents from Vera and a bottle without a label I also took with me. First thing, I asked Marina for an important favor, to take the bottle to a private laboratory for analysis of its contents. Marina was a pharmacist. She had connections in this field, and she could get the results faster than if I applied officially. "I won't ask what's going on until you yourself want to tell me," said Marina, taking the bottle. "But if you need help, just say so." I nodded, feeling grateful that in my life there was at least someone I could trust. I spent the next 2 days studying the documents provided by Vera and checking the state of our business with Artem through the online banking system. What I discovered confirmed the words of Vera. Our company was indeed in a catastrophic financial situation. The accounts were almost empty. Debts to suppliers and creditors amounted to a huge sum. And strangely enough, I didn't notice any of this because Artem always handled the financial side of our business, and I was responsible for promotion and working with clients. How could I have been so blind? I asked myself, looking through the transactions of the last months. Small cash withdrawals, transfers to unfamiliar accounts, gradual depletion of our reserves. All this was happening right under my nose, and I didn't notice anything, completely trusting my husband. On the 3rd day of my stay with Marina, she returned with the results of the analysis of the contents of the vial. Her face was serious when she handed me the envelope with the report. "This is a potent poison, Xenia," she said quietly. "Even a small dose can cause serious organ damage, and a higher dose death. and it doesn't act immediately, gradually, which can create the impression of a natural death from a heart attack or stroke. I sat, holding the report in my hands, and felt a cold rage filling me. Artyom really wanted to kill me. This was not a misunderstanding. It wasn't paranoia on my part. It was reality, confirmed by laboratory analysis. "What are you going to do?" asked Marina, sitting next to me. "Go to the police," I replied, and my voice sounded alien, as if someone else was speaking through me. "I have no choice. He is dangerous, and if I don't stop him now, he might try again." Marina nodded in agreement. "I'll go with you. You shouldn't go through this alone." Gathering all the documents, results of the analysis, and the vial, we went to the police station. I requested a meeting with Detective Igor Sergeyevich, who was handling Artyom's poisoning case. When we were led into his office, I put everything I had on the table in front of him. "Mrs. Kovaleva," the detective began, looking through the documents. "This is serious charge. You claim that your husband tried to poison you, but instead accidentally poisoned himself." "Yes," I replied firmly. "In the restaurant, an unknown woman warned me that my husband had poured something into my glass. I switched the glasses when he was distracted, and here's the result. He's in the hospital and I'm here. And this woman, Vera Lisovskaya, will she confirm your version?" "Yes, she is ready to testify. She also provided documents proving that Artyom had financial motives for my murder." The detective carefully studied the laboratory report on the contents of the vial. "It matches what we found in your husband's blood. The same composition, the same components. Where did you find this vial?" "In his desk drawer, hidden under documents." The detective nodded, making notes. "Mrs. Kovaleva, I must warn you. Starting from this moment, the case takes on an official character. We will conduct a full-fledged investigation into the attempted murder. Your husband will be the accused, and you the victim. This means that all the details of your personal life, finances, relationships will be thoroughly examined. Are you ready for this?" I paused for a moment. Was I ready for my personal life to be put on display? That everyone would find out about Artyom's betrayal, about my naivety, about the collapse of our marriage and business. But then I remembered the poison in the glass, about the cold calculation with which Artyom planned my death. "Yes," I said firmly. "I'm ready." The detective nodded in approval. "Good, we'll start immediately. First, we need to take official statements from you and of Mrs. Lisovskaya. Then we will conduct a search of your apartment and office, seize computers and phones for analysis. And, of course, we will question your husband as soon as the doctors allow." I nodded, feeling a strange relief. Now it's not just my fight. Now there is an official investigation by professionals who will help establish the truth and punish the guilty. "And one more important point," the detective continued. "Considering the seriousness of the situation, we recommend you temporary protection. If your husband really planned your murder and he has connections with dangerous creditors, you may be in danger." "What kind of protection?" I asked, suddenly realizing that this is all not a movie. This is my real life, and it may be in danger. "We can provide you with safe housing for the duration of the investigation, restrict information about your whereabouts, and, if necessary, assign protection." I looked at Marina, who had been sitting next to me all this time, silently supporting me. "I can stay with Marina. I feel safe with her." The detective thought about it. "That's possible, but we'll have to check this location for security and establish some precautions, and your friend will also have to follow certain rules of confidentiality." Marina immediately agreed. "I will do whatever is necessary. Ksenia can stay with me for as long as necessary." That's how the official investigation began. The following several hours I gave detailed testimony, telling everything that happened in the restaurant, about the conversation with Vera, about the found vial and documents. Vera also came to the police and confirmed my words, adding information about her consultations with Artyom on insurance matters, and about how she gradually realized what he was planning. By evening, the police already had enough evidence to establish surveillance of Artyom in the hospital and begin the process of obtaining a warrant to search our apartment with him and office. "We will contact you as soon as there is news," the detective said, seeing us off. "In the meantime, try not to attract attention. Limit the use of social networks and credit cards. It is best to completely disappear from the information field for investigation time." I nodded, understanding that my life was now divided into before and after. And this after required me to be strong, careful and ready for the fact that the struggle is just beginning. Returning to Marina's apartment, I felt a fatigue that seemed not physical but spiritual. Too many shocks, too many discoveries in such a short time. Try to rest, Marina said, seeing my condition. I'll be around if you need to talk. I nodded gratefully and went to the guest room. Lying in the dark, I tried to comprehend everything that had happened, to find the moment when everything went wrong, when Artyom decided that my death would become the solution to his problems. My phone vibrated, showing an incoming call. Hospital number. My heart skipped a beat. I almost didn't want to answer, but something made me press the green button. Hello. My voice sounded strained. Ksenia, it's me. Artyom's voice was weak, but there was a strange determination in it. I know you've figured everything out. The police were here. They were asking questions. I understand that you will never forgive me, and I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want to warn you. They know that the plan failed. They'll come for you, because now you're the only way for me to pay off my debts. Who are they? Artyom, I asked. I feel how the blood runs cold in my veins. People to whom I owe. Serious people, Ksenia. They don't stop at anything. I thought I could solve everything myself. Protect you from the consequences of my mistakes. Protect me. Killing me. I couldn't hold back the bitterness in my voice. I know it sounds insane, but at that moment it seemed like the only way out. I drove myself into a corner, made debts that I couldn't repay. They threatened retaliation, and not just me, but you too. I thought if you died of natural causes, I would get insurance, pay off the debts, and it would all be over. But what about me, Artyom? Did you even think about me? About the fact that I'm losing my life in your calculations? Silence on the other end was long. I can't explain what happened to me, Ksenia. I seemed to go crazy from fear and despair. But now I want to at least warn you. They know that you are alive and that the police have started an investigation. They won't wait until everything is revealed completely. They will come for you to make me pay in other ways. Who are they? Artyom, I repeated the question. Give me names, information, something that will help the police protect me. I can't. His voice trembled. They will kill me if I talk. But you must be careful, very careful. Don't go home. Don't show up at the office. Don't use our joint accounts. Disappear at least for a while. I've already done that, I replied dryly. The police are providing me with protection. Good, that's right. He was silent, then added, Ksenia, I know this doesn't change anything, but I really loved you. Before everything went wrong, before I started drowning in debt and fear, you were the best thing that happened in my life, and I destroyed everything. I didn't answer. His declaration of love now sounded like a mockery, like a final insult after everything he had done. I have to go, I said. Goodbye, Artyom. Goodbye, Ksenia, and please be careful. I hung up and sat for a long time in the dark, holding the phone in my hand. The threat was real. Artyom wasn't pretending. His warning sounded sincere, and that scared me even more. I left the room and found Marina in the kitchen, making tea. Artyom called, I said, lowering myself onto a chair. He warned me of danger. He says that the people he owes money to might come after me. Marina silently put a cup of tea in front of me and sat opposite. Do you believe him? In this, yes, he sounded really scared, and it matches what Vera said about his debts. Then we need to be more careful. Tomorrow I'll talk to the building manager about increased security, and perhaps we should ask the police for regular patrols of the area. I nodded, grateful for her support and practical approach. Thank you, Marina. I don't know what I would do without you. That's what friends are for, she replied with a slight smile. Now drink some tea and try to get some sleep. Tomorrow will be a new day, and we will continue to fight. I finished my tea and returned to the bedroom, but sleep wouldn't come. Thoughts about Artyom's betrayal, about the unknown danger, about how quickly my life had fallen apart, gave me no peace. I lay staring at the ceiling, and thought about how just a few days ago I was preparing to celebrate my wedding anniversary, rejoicing in my happiness and making plans for the future. And now I hiding in someone else's apartment, fearing for my life. And the only future that I can plan is a lawsuit against my own husband. The morning brought news from Detective Igor Sergeyevich. The police obtained a warrant to search our apartment with Artyom and the office and have already begun collecting evidence. They also established surveillance of the hospital where Artyom was, in case any of his creditors decides to visit him. We found another vial, identical to the one you brought, the detective reported on the phone. It was hidden in the ventilation grill in your bedroom. We also found some interesting documents in your husband's office that confirm his financial problems and connections with some dubious personalities. Do you know who these people are, to whom he owes money? I asked, remembering Artyom's warning. We have some assumptions. It seems your husband got involved with a local criminal group involved in loan sharking and racketeering. We have already started working in this direction. Are they dangerous? I knew the question sounded naive, but I needed to hear the truth. Yes, they are dangerous, the detective answered directly, but we are doing everything possible to ensure your safety. We have experience working with such situations. After talking to the detective, I felt a strange relief. At least now I knew what I was dealing with. Uncertainty is always more frightening than a specific threat that can be fought. Vera called later that same day. She also testified to the police and was now under protection as an important witness. How are you? She asked, and her voice sounded sincere concern. I'm holding on, I replied, trying to make sense of everything that happened and decide what to do next. Do you have a plan? Vera always seemed to me a person who values concreteness and structure. Not yet, I'm still in the stage of awareness. My life in a few days turned into ruins, and I'm not sure with what to start the restoration. I understand, but perhaps you should think about the future of your business. Despite debts and problems, it may still be a value worth preserving. I didn't think about it. The business that we built with Artyom seemed like the same trader as he himself. But Vera was right. Maybe there was still some value in it, something that could be salvaged from the wreckage of my former life. You're right, I said. I should at least assess the situation and see if anything can be saved. I can help, Vera offered. I have experience in restructuring troubled companies. If you want, we can review the financial documents together and develop a plan of action. This offer caught me off guard. Why is this woman, who barely knows me, willing to help so much? I voiced this question. Vera paused before answering because I went through something similar. Many years ago, my husband also betrayed me, didn't try to kill me, of course, but destroyed our joint company and left me with debts. I know how hard it is to get back on your feet from scratch, and I want you to have someone who will help you avoid my mistakes. Her sincerity touched me. In a world that suddenly became dangerous and hostile, finding selfless support was a real gift. Thank you, I said. I would like your help. We agreed to meet in a few days, when the situation with security becomes more stable. Until then, I decided to focus on cooperating with the police and strengthening my defense. Marina returned from work in the evening, loaded with groceries and news. The building manager agreed to increase security, and the police promised to regularly patrol the area. And another thing, she said, putting the purchases on the kitchen table. I contacted my brother. He works in IT security. He will create new electronic identifiers for you so that you can use the internet and communicate with people without revealing your location. I was touched by Marina's care. You're doing so much for me. And would you do the same for me if I were in a similar situation? She answered simply. By the way, my brother also says that you should think about your finances. If you and Artyom had joint accounts, he might try to withdraw money, even while in the hospital under supervision. It was a thought that hadn't occurred to me. Our main accounts were joint, and theoretically Artyom could access them through online banking. You're right, I said. I feel a new wave of anxiety. I need to urgently block the accounts or withdraw the money. Let's do it right now. Marina suggested, taking out her laptop. My brother said that you could use a VPN to mask your IP address so that no one could track where you're logging in from. We spent the next hour blocking old accounts and creating new ones in my name at another bank. I transferred the remaining funds, which fortunately were not much but still enough to last for a while. Have you thought about divorce? Marina asked when we finished with the finances. Yes, I replied, but the detective said that now is not the best time to start divorce proceedings. It's better to wait until the completion of the investigation and trial in the case of attempted murder. Marina nodded. That makes sense, but maybe you should already now to consult a family law attorney to understand your rights and start preparing. Another practical advice that I couldn't ignore. I'll try to find a good lawyer, I agreed. We had dinner together, trying not to talk about my problems but to discuss something neutral, movies, books, news from the world of fashion. It was almost normal, almost like before, when we were just friends, sharing news over dinner. After dinner, I returned to my room and for the first time in recent days felt something resembling peace. I knew that the danger had not passed, that my life was still in ruins. But now I had a plan. There were people willing to help, and there was a determination to fight. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello," I answered cautiously. "Ksenia Kovaleva." The man's voice was low, with a slight accent. "My name is Mikhail Leonidovich. I am a lawyer representing the interests of some of your husband's business partners. We would like to discuss with you the issue of repaying his debt." I felt a chill run down my spine. Here it begins. Artyom's creditors decided to contact me directly. "I have nothing to do with my husband's debts," I replied, trying to sound confident. "Resolve all issues with him. Unfortunately, your husband is currently unavailable, and the matter cannot be delayed. My clients are ready to offer you a mutually beneficial solution. Let's meet tomorrow at 12 o'clock at Café Europe. Come alone, without the police. And if I refuse," I asked, already knowing the answer, "then my clients will have to look for other ways to get their money back. Ways that might be less comfortable for you and your surroundings." The threat was transparent. They threatened not only me, but also the people who are dear to me. "I'll think about it," I said, deciding not to give a definite answer. "Think faster, Mrs. Kovaleva. Time is not on your side." The connection was broken, and I was left sitting with the phone in my hand, feeling the panic rising inside me. Artyom was right. They came for me, and they won't stop until they get what they want. I left the room and found Marina in the living room, reading a book. I told her about the call. "We must immediately report this to the police," she said decisively. "This is a direct threat. They can start tracking such calls and find these people." I agreed and called Detective Igor Sergeyevich, who left his personal number for emergencies. He listened to me carefully. "This is important information," he said. "Now we have proof of a direct threat. Don't worry, we will increase your protection and start tracking this lawyer. But I need you to promise one thing, Mrs. Kovaleva. Don't go to this meeting under any circumstances. This is a trap, and we cannot guarantee your safety in such a situation." I wasn't going to go, I assured him. "But what should I do if they call again?" "Talk to them. Stall for time. Pretend that you are considering their offers. We need to gather as much information as possible before acting. And we may have to temporarily move you to a safer place." I hung up the phone, feeling a new weight of responsibility. Now I'm not just a victim. I am an active participant in the operation to capture dangerous criminals. And not only my safety, but also the success of the entire investigation may depend on my actions. "What did he say?" Marina asked. "That I need to stall for time and not go to the meeting, and that perhaps I will have to move to a more safe place." Marina nodded. "That's reasonable. My apartment is not a fortress, and if these people are really dangerous, it will not be difficult for them to get in here." We talked until late at night, discussing possible scenarios and action plans. Marina was surprisingly calm and practical, which helped me to remain clarity of thought in this surreal situation. Finally, fatigue took its toll and I went to sleep. But even in my sleep, I was haunted by nightmares of betrayal, pursuit, and hopeless situations. I woke up several times during the night, checking the locks on the doors and listening to every rustle. Morning brought new worries. The detective called early, reporting that they had traced the call and identified the caller. It was indeed a lawyer, but with a dubious reputation, known for his connections with the criminal world. "We are continuing surveillance," said the detective. "In the meantime, I will send a police officer to you for additional protection. He will be on duty at the entrance to the building." I gratefully agreed, feeling that the ring of protection around me was shrinking, but I didn't know if it was enough against people willing to do anything for money. The day passed in tense anticipation. Vera sent a message that she had found some inconsistencies in the financial documents of our company, which may indicate misuse of funds by Artyom. It seems he was withdrawing money not only to pay off debts, but also for something else, she wrote. It was a new mystery, a new twist in an already confusing story. Where else could Artyom withdraw money? What did he spend it on? And how deep does the rabbit burrow of his lies and betrayal go? At 12 o'clock, the time of the supposed meeting at Café Europe, which I, of course, ignored, the phone rang again. Same number. "You didn't come, Mrs. Kovaleva." The lawyer's voice sounded calmly, but with a hint of threat. "My clients are disappointed with your decision." "I didn't have the opportunity to come," I replied, following the detective's advice to stall for time. "I still don't understand what exactly your clients want." $2 million. That's how much your husband owes my clients, including interest, and they want to receive this money within 48 hours. "I don't have that kind of money," I said, which was the pure truth. but there is an insurance policy in your name. A policy that could pay out exactly that amount in case of your death. Your husband was willing to solve this problem in a certain way. But now that his plan has failed, you will have to find another solution. I felt nauseous. They knew about Artyom's plan to poison me, knew about the insurance, perhaps even pushing him towards this decision. I can't cash out the insurance while he's alive, I said, continuing the conversation, realizing that the police are probably listening to this call. There are other solutions. For example, you can take out a loan secured by your property or business, or find other assets that can be quickly converted into cash. My clients don't care where the money comes from. They only care about the result. I need time, I said, trying to sound confident, although everything inside was contracting with fear. This is a large sum. I can't find it in 48 hours. You have 36 hours, no more, he replied, and his tone did not suggest objections. And so that you understand the seriousness of the situation, take a look at the photo that I'm sending you now. I'll send it. A few seconds later, a message with a picture arrived on the phone. It was a photograph of Marina leaving the pharmacy where she worked. The photo was clearly taken this morning. Judging by the clothes she left for work in, the blood froze in my veins. They were watching Marina, knew where she worked. Perhaps they even knew that I was hiding in her apartment. Don't touch my friends, I said, and my voice trembled. They have nothing to do with this situation. It only depends on you, Mrs. Kovaleva, 3600V. I'll call back tomorrow at the same time to hear about your progress. He hung up, and I remained sitting, clutching the phone in my hand, feeling waves of panic washing over me. They knew about Marina. They could get to her at any moment. And 36 hours. That's an impossibly short time to raise $2 million, which I simply don't have. I immediately contacted the detective and told him about the call and the photo of Marina. This is a serious escalation, he said in a much more alarmed voice than before. We'll immediately send an officer to your friend and arrange for her to be escorted home. As for you, we can't take any more risks. We need to move you to a safe place right now. What about Marina? They know about her. They might go after her even after I leave. We'll provide protection for her too. But right now, the most important thing is to hide you from these people until we have enough evidence to arrest them. Within an hour, 2 police officers arrived to pick me up in a plain clothes. They helped me gather a minimum of belongings and led me to an inconspicuous car, parked in the alley behind the house. Where are we going? I asked when the car started moving. To a safe house outside the city, one of the officers replied. There you will be under constant protection, and no one will be able to find you. We drove for about 2 hours, first through the city, making random turns and checking for surveillance, then on the highway and then on rural roads. Finally, the car turned onto a forest path and stopped at a small wooden house, hidden among the trees. This is it, the officer said. They are waiting for you inside. The house turned out to be modest, but cozy. 2 bedrooms, a living room, a small kitchen, everything necessary for life. In the living room, I was met by a middle-aged woman who introduced herself as Sergeant Elena. She explained that she would be responsible for my safety along with 2 more officers who were on duty outside. There is internet and telephone here, but we recommend limiting communication to only the most necessary contacts. Elena said, and always use the VPN that we have installed. I nodded, feeling a strange detachment from what was happening. All this, the safe house, the security, the secret moves seemed like scenes from a movie, not my real life. But the pain and fear were quite real. Detective Igor Sergeyevich will be in touch with you and keep you informed of the progress of the investigation. Elena continued. In the meantime, try to rest and regain your strength. You've had a hard day. I settled into one of the bedrooms, laid out the few things that I managed to take with me. Among them was a photograph of me and Artyom on the day of our wedding. I didn't remember how it ended up in my bag. Perhaps I mechanically put it in when I was packing things at Marina's. Looking at the photo, I tried to understand if that happy moment was real or if it was all pretense from the very beginning. When Artyom decided that my life was worth less than his debts, when our love turned into calculation and manipulation, I remembered Vera's words that Artyom withdrew money not only to pay off debts, but also for something else. What could that be? Another woman? A secret life that I didn't know about, or something more sinister? In the evening he called Detective Igor Sergeyevich. I have news, Mrs. Kovaleva, he began. We conducted a preliminary analysis of the financial documents seized from the office of your husband. It appears that a significant portion of the money went to offshore accounts and then was transferred in small amounts back to Russia to the accounts of various shell companies. What does that mean? I asked, trying to understand the scheme. This is a classic money laundering scheme, but it's strange that the money didn't stay in offshore zones, where it's difficult to track, but was returning back. This suggests that your husband may not have simply borrowed money from criminal elements, but was also involved in their activities more deeply. This was a new revelation, a new level of betrayal. Artyom didn't just take debt to the bandits. He may have worked with them, participated in laundering their dirty money. And what about the people who are threatening me? I asked. Do you have any information about them? We have identified several suspects. There's a local group involved in racketeering, usury, and illegal and mining business. They are known for their cruelty and the fact that they always get their way. But we are working to gather enough evidence for their arrest. And Marina, is she safe? Yes, we have organized protection for her too. She is currently at relatives outside the city, also under protection. This at least calmed me down a little. At least Marina won't suffer because of me. What about Artyom? Is he still in the hospital? Yes, but his condition has stabilized. The doctors say that in a day or two he can be discharged, and then we will present him with an official charge of attempted murder. I sighed. The thought of my husband behind bars still caused pain, despite everything he had done. Rest, Mrs. Kovaleva, said the detective finally. We are doing everything possible to resolve the situation as quickly and safely as possible for everyone. The night in the safe house was quiet, but restless. I woke up at every rustle, at every creak of the floorboards. My brain refused to shut down, constantly scrolling through the events of the past few days, trying to find meaning in the chaos into which my life had turned. In the morning, I decided to do what always helped me restore my peace of mind. Work. I had my laptop with me, protected by a VPN, and I could safely study the financial documents of our company, looking for discrepancies that Vera talked about. I delved into tables, statements, reports, and the more I studied, the clearer it became that our business was indeed in a difficult situation, but not because of market conditions or competition, but because of the systematic withdrawal of funds by Artyom. The amounts were not gigantic, but regular. They leaked from the company's accounts, like water through fingers. The strangest thing was that these funds did not immediately go to criminal creditors. First, they went through a complex network of accounts and companies, and then part of them came back to Russia. But where exactly, to whom, I could not trace without special skills or access to banking information. Around noon, Vera called. I found out something interesting, she said without preamble. Part of the money withdrawn by your husband went to purchase real estate in Krasnoyarsk. A 3-room apartment in a new residential complex, registered to a certain Alina Sergeeva. Does the name ring a bell? I felt something cold twisting inside. No, I've never heard of her. I conducted a small investigation. This Alina, judging by social media, is a young woman, 28 years old, works in a travel company, and she has photos with your husband. They are together at some resorts, in restaurants. The blow was so expected and simultaneously painful that I caught my breath. A mistress? Of course, there had to be a mistress. Artyom didn't just want money. He was building a new life with another woman. How long have they been together? I asked, wondering how calm my voice sounds when everything inside is burning with pain and rage. Judging by the photos, about a year, maybe a little more. A year. For a whole year, Artyom lived a double life, shared a bed with me and with her, smiled at me and at her, made promises to me and her. And all this time he was planning to get rid of me in order to start a new life with a young mistress, using my insurance money. I'm sorry I had to tell you this, Vera said, and in her voice there was sincere sympathy. But I thought it was better for you to know the full picture. You're right, I replied, swallowing the lump in my throat. Thank you for the information. After talking to Vera, I sat by the window, looking at the forest surrounding the safe house, and tried to gather the fragments of my reality. So, Artyom didn't just want money to pay off debts. He wanted a new life with a new woman. Apparently, the apartment in Krasnoyarsk was just the beginning. After my death, he planned to get the insurance, pay off the debts, and start with a clean slate in a new city with Alina. This explained a lot, but not everything. Why did he get into debt in the first place? Why was our business on the verge of collapse? Was this the result of his incompetence or deliberate actions? In the middle of the day, the detective called with news. We have detained the lawyer who threatened you, he reported. He is currently testifying. This may give us a clue to his clients. That's good news, I said. And also, Mrs. Kovaleva, your husband has regained consciousness and is demanding a lawyer. He refuses to answer our questions without legal protection. This is right, but it's delaying the process. I understand, and what about the people he owes money to? Do they still pose a threat? Unfortunately, yes. We can't arrest them all without sufficient evidence, but we're working on it. In the meantime, you better stay in the safe house. In the evening, Sergeant Elena dropped by to make sure I had everything I needed. She was the first person I could talk to face all day, and I was grateful for that interaction. How are you holding up? She asked, sitting on the edge of the sofa. I don't know, I answered honestly. Sometimes it seems to me that all this is not happening to me, that I'm just an observer in someone else's drama. Elena nodded understandingly. This is a normal reaction to trauma, detachment, a protective mechanism of the psyche. Do you often deal with such situations? With attempts to murder each other by spouses? More often than I would like. She sighed. But usually it happens in less affluent families and due to domestic conflicts. Your case, with his financial schemes, criminal connections, and careful planning, stands out. I'm lucky, I said with a bitter smirk. You are a strong woman, Mrs. Kovaleva, said Elena, getting up. You survived an assassination attempt, betrayal, threats, and still hold on. It's worthy of respect. After she left, I returned to studying financial documents, trying to distract myself from thoughts about Artyom's mistress and his betrayal. Among the many transactions and transfers, I noticed a pattern. Money was going not only to offshore company accounts and to Alina in Krasnoyarsk, but also to the account of a certain LLC, Phoenix Consulting. Moreover, the amounts were significant and regular. I tried to find information about this company on the internet, but found only dry information from the Register of Legal Entities. Founded 3 years ago. Main activity, consulting services, General Director Lisovskaya Vera Andreevna. I reread this name several times, not believing my eyes. Vera Lisovskaya, the very Vera who warned me in restaurant, who accidentally learned about Artyom's plans, who so willingly helped me understand the financial matters. A chill ran down my spine. What if Vera is not a savior, but an accomplice? What if she and Artyom were deceiving me from the very beginning, playing out a complex performance? But why? If she really was in cahoots with Artyom, she wouldn't have warned me about the poisoned glass. She would have allowed the plan to succeed, unless it was a more complex plan, the goal of which was something else, not my death. I took out my phone and dialed the detective's number. I need you to check the information about Vera Lisovskaya, I said when he answered. She owns the company Fex Consulting, which received large sums from our business. It may be a coincidence, but I have to be sure. That's interesting information. The detective sounded intrigued. We'll check this company and its connections to your husband. If Mrs. Lisovskaya received money from your business, cast doubt on her role in this whole story. After talking to the detective, I couldn't sit still. I walked around the room, going over everything in my mind that I knew about Vera, every word she said, every gesture. Something didn't add up in this story, but I couldn't figure out what exactly. The call from the lawyer was supposed to come at noon, but the phone was silent. Perhaps his detention interrupted the chain of communication between the creditors and me. Or maybe they were preparing something else, more dangerous. In the evening, the detective called back with news about Vera. We conducted a preliminary check of Ms. Lisovskaya and her company, he said, and found several interesting facts. Firstly, she did receive large sums from your business officially for consulting services. Secondly, she has a conviction for fraud from 10 years ago. And thirdly, what is most interesting, she is related to one of the city's well-known crime bosses. He is her cousin. This information stunned me. Vera, who seemed to be my savior, my only ally in this nightmare, had connections with the criminal world and received money from our business. This couldn't be a coincidence. What does this mean? I asked, although I was beginning to understand. This means that Ms. Lisovskaya is probably not who she claims to be. We don't know exactly what her role is in all of this, but we suspect that she may have been a link between your husband and criminal lenders. Perhaps it was through her that he contacted them to obtain loans. But then why did she warn me in the restaurant? Why did she help me collect evidence against Artyom? That's what we have to find out. Perhaps she had her own game, her own motives. We are continuing the investigation. In the meantime, I recommend that you cease all communication with Ms. Lisovskaya. Do not answer her calls or messages. Do not share any information with her. I agreed, feeling how my trust in people is collapsing completely. If even the belief, who seemed sincere in her desire to help, could be part of this conspiracy, who could I trust at all? The next morning I woke up to a phone call. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello," I answered cautiously. "Ksenia, this is Vera. Please, don't hang up." Her voice sounded agitated. "I know that the police have already told you about me, about my past, about my company, about my family connections. But that's not the whole truth. I need to meet with you and explain everything." I was silent, not knowing what to answer. Part of me wanted to hear her explanation, to understand what was really happening, but another part was screaming about danger, about how it could be a trap. "Why should I trust you?" I finally asked. "You've been lying to me from the very beginning." "Not from the very beginning," she retorted. "I really wanted to help you, and I still want to. Yes, I didn't tell you everything about myself, about my connections with Artem and with those people to whom he owes money, but I had reasons, and if you give me a chance to explain, I think you'll understand. I can't meet with you. The police consider you a suspect. I know, and I'm ready to cooperate with them, to tell everything I know. But first I need to talk to you. This isn't just about money and debts. It's about your safety." Her words made me wary. "What do you mean?" "Not on the phone, please, Ksenia. I know you're in a safe house outside the city. I can come there, allow the police to search me, make sure I don't pose a threat, but I need to talk to you in person." I hesitated. Meeting Vera could be dangerous, but perhaps it was the only way to find out the whole truth. "I have to consult with the detective," I said finally. "If he approves of a meeting under police supervision, then okay." "Thank you," Vera breathed out with clear relief. "I will await your decision." I called the detective and told him about Vera's offer. He was skeptical. "This could be an attempt to find out your location," he warned, "or a way to lure you into a trap. But you said that here I am under protection, right? And you can search her before the meeting, make sure that she is not armed." The detective thought, "That's true, and maybe this is a chance to get more information. Okay, I will allow this meeting, but on the condition that it takes place under the full control of the police. We will record every word, and at the first sign of danger, we will intervene." That's how it was decided. The meeting with Vera was to take place in a safe house that same day. I spent several hours in nervous anticipation, trying to anticipate what she would say, what explanations she would offer for her double game. Vera arrived accompanied by 2 police officers. She was searched to ensure she posed no physical threat, and only after that was she allowed to enter the house. In the living room where our meeting was to take place, cameras and microphones were installed. 2 officers remained in the room, ready to intervene at the slightest suspicious movement. Vera looked tired and tense. She sat opposite me, with her hands folded in her lap. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she began. "I know you don't trust me, and you have reasons for that, but I hope that after my story you will understand my motives." "I'm listening," I said, maintaining distance and emotional detachment. "You already know that I have connections with the criminal world through my cousin. And yes, I received money from your business, but not as part of some conspiracy against you. I was a mediator between Artyom and my brother. Artyom needed money. My brother could provide it. I brought them together, for which I received a commission. This was a purely business transaction, and you saw nothing strange in the fact that the husband behind his wife's back takes huge loans from criminal elements?" I asked with sarcasm. "I didn't know he was doing this behind your back," Vera retorted. "He said it was for business development, that you were aware, but preferred not to delve into the details of the financing. And I believed him. After all, Artem always gave the impression of a successful businessman, a loving husband." I skeptically raised an eyebrow, but didn't interrupt. "The problem started when Artem couldn't repay the debts. My brother isn't the most patient creditor. He started to pressure, to threaten, and then Artem came to me with a request for help. He said that he plans to insure your life for a large sum, and then get rid of you. He asked me to be his alibi on the day of your death. And you agreed?" In my voice sounded disgust. "No, of course not," Vera exclaimed. I was shocked. It's one thing to be a mediator in financial transactions, even dubious ones, and quite another to participate in a murder. I categorically refused, but I knew that simply refusing wouldn't stop Artem. He was desperate, cornered. And then I decided to warn you, to save you from his plan. Why? Why did you decide to help me, and not him? After all, you worked with him, not with me. Vera lowered her eyes. Because I know what it's like to be betrayed by those you trust the most. My ex-husband also tried to get rid of me when I became an obstacle to his plans. And if it weren't for a random coincidence, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you now. I looked at her attentively, trying to determine if she's telling the truth or if it's another manipulation. But that's not all, Vera continued. After Artem's plan failed and he ended up in the hospital, the situation changed. My brother and his people decided that you are now their only chance to get the money back. They started following you, threatening you. I tried to convince them to leave you alone, but they wouldn't listen. And then I decided to help you collect evidence against Artem so you could defend yourself. And you accidentally discovered his mistress in Krasnoyarsk. Was that also part of your plan to help me? Yes, I knew about Alina. Artem didn't particularly hide her from me, but I decided that you should know the whole truth, no matter how painful this revelation was. And what about the company Phoenix Consulting? Why was Artyom transferring such large sums to you? It was a money laundering scheme. Artyom was taking money out of your business through my company. Part of it went to pay off debts to my brother, part for his personal needs, including Alina's upkeep. And the remaining money was returned to Russia through a network of shell companies already as clean funds. And you participated in this scheme. Yes, Vera did not deny it. I'm not proud of it, but yes, I was part of this scheme for a certain percentage. Of course. I leaned back in my chair, trying to make sense of everything I had heard. Vera's story sounded plausible, but the main question remained, why are you telling me all this now? What has changed? Vera leaned closer, lowering her voice, although she knew that every word of hers was being recorded. Because you are facing real danger. My brother is not one of those who forgives debts, and he believes that you are now responsible for Artem's debts. Yesterday he found out that his lawyer was arrested. He is furious and ready for extreme measures. He has people in the police, informants. He can find out where you are. And what you are offering? I asked, feeling how fear rises again inside. I can help you disappear, not just hide in a safe house under police protection, but truly disappear. New name, new documents, a new life in another city or even country. I have connections, I can arrange it. I looked at her with disbelief. Are you suggesting I become a fugitive, leave my whole life, friends, job, and just disappear? Is this a temporary measure? Vera assured. Only until the police won't arrest my brother and his people. And then you can come back if you want, but right now your life is really in danger. I looked at the police officers standing by the wall. Their faces were impassive, professionally emotionless, but something in their eyes told me that they didn't consider the threat exaggerated. I can't make such a decision right now, I said, turning back to Vera. I need to think, discuss it with the detective. Of course, nodded Vera, but don't delay with the decision. There may be less time than you think. With this, our meeting ended. Vera left her contact number and left accompanied by police officers. I was left alone in the living room with a head full of new questions and doubts. Detective Igor Sergeyevich arrived an hour after Vera left. He looked serious and concerned. We have checked the information provided by Mrs. Lisovskaya, he said, sitting across from me. Most of it corresponds to reality. Her cousin is indeed one of the leaders of the local criminal group, and he did provide loans to your husband. Do you think the threat is real, that this person can get to me even here? The detective hesitated before answering. We have no concrete evidence that he has informants in the police, but we cannot rule out such a possibility. In any case, we will increase security and consider transferring you to another safe place, even more protected. What about Vera's offer, about helping me disappear? It's a risky path. The detective shook his head. We cannot guarantee your safety if you leave police protection, and we cannot trust Mrs. Lisovskaya 100%, despite her apparent sincerity. But you can't guarantee my safety here, can you? I asked directly. The detective sighed. Absolute guarantees do not exist, Mrs. Kovaleva, but we have the resources, experience, and determination to protect you. And how long can this go on? A week, a month, a year? I can't live forever in hiding under guard. I have my own life, work, plans. I understand your impatience, but we are doing everything possible to complete the investigation as soon as possible. Your husband will be discharged from hospital tomorrow, and we'll present him with a formal charge. His testimony could be the key to arresting his creditors. I snorted skeptically. Do you really think Artem will cooperate? After everything he's done, he may not have a choice. The evidence against him is irrefutable. He faces a lengthy sentence for attempted murder. But if he agrees to cooperate, provided provides information about the criminal activities of his creditors, the court may consider this as a mitigating circumstance. I thought about it. Maybe this was a way out. If Artem agrees to testify against the criminal group, it could lead to their arrest and the elimination of the threat to me. And when will we know if he'll agree to cooperate? I asked. Tomorrow, as soon as he is delivered to the police station, we will conduct the first interrogation with his lawyer present. I nodded, feeling a strange calm. Now I had a plan, or at least the outlines of a plan, to wait for the results of Artem's interrogation, and then decide whether to remain under police protection or accept Vera's offer and disappear. The night passed restlessly. I woke up at every rustle, every creak of the floorboard. In the morning, checking the phone, I found a message from Vera. Be ready today. I'm waiting for your decision at noon. I didn't answer, deciding to wait for news from the detective about Artem's interrogation. Time stretched agonizingly slowly. I tried to distract myself with reading, television, even tried to work on financial documents, but my thoughts constantly were returning to the upcoming decision. Finally, around 11 o'clock in the morning, the detective called. I have news, Mrs. Kovaleva. His voice sounded strained. Your husband was taken to the police station this morning. He has been officially charged with attempted murder, but he refuses to testify against his creditors. He says he'd rather go to prison than risk revenge from their side. This was an unexpected turn. I thought that Artem, who always cared primarily about himself, would choose cooperation in order to mitigate his sentence. But, apparently, the fear of criminal elements was stronger than the fear of prison. What does this mean for me? I asked, already knowing the answer. It means that we don't have enough evidence to arrest the criminal group. We continue to work on the case, gathering information from other sources, but it may take time. And for now you will have to remain under our protection. I sighed. Time. That's exactly what I didn't have. Artem's creditors were waiting for their money, and they won't patiently wait for the police to gather enough evidence for their arrest. I understand, I said. Thank you for the information. After talking to the detective, I sat for a long time, looking out the window at the forest surrounding the safe house. The decision I had to make could change my entire life. To remain under the protection of the police, hoping that they can ensure my safety long enough to collect evidence against the criminal group, or to accept Vera's offer, disappear, start a new life, albeit temporarily, but with more freedom and possibly more security. At noon, I dialed Vera's number. I've made a decision, I said when she answered. I agree to your plan. Help me disappear. Are you sure? Vera's voice sounded serious. This is not an easy decision, and it will have consequences. I'm sure. Artem refused to cooperate with the police. This means that the investigation will be delayed, and I can't stay in hiding indefinitely. I understand. Here's what we need to do. Tonight, around 8 p.m., there will be a change of guards at the safe house. At this moment, a gray Toyota will drive up to the back of the house. The driver is my trusted person. He will help you leave the house discreetly and take you to a safe place where I will meet you. The police are tracking all my communications. They might hear this conversation. I know, but by the time they react, you will already be far away, and I made sure that my plan wasn't fully revealed in this conversation. I hesitated, realizing that I was about to break all the security protocols that the police had established for me, but I saw no other way out. Okay, I'll be ready at 8. After talking to Vera, I began to carefully prepare for the escape. I gathered the most necessary things in a small bag that could be easily carried with me. I destroyed all the records and notes that I had made while studying financial documents. I tried to behave as usual so as not to arouse suspicions from the guards. In the evening, when the clock showed the approach of 8 o'clock, I sat in the living room, pretending to watch television, but in reality listening to the sounds outside. At 7:55, I heard the noise of a car approaching the back of the house. At 8 o'clock sharp, the changing of the guard began, and I heard the voices of officers passing information to each other. This was my chance. I quietly went into the bedroom, grabbed the prepared bag, and slipped through the window that overlooked the back of the house. It was already dark around, which made my task easier. I quickly ran to the gray Toyota, which was waiting for me with the engine running. The driver, a man of middle age with an unremarkable appearance, just nodded to me when I got in the car. Without further ado, he started the places, moving not too fast so as not to attract attention, but confidently heading away from the safe house. Where are we going? I asked as we pulled onto the main road. To the airport, he replied curtly. Mrs. Lisovskaya is waiting for us there. I sat in silence, looking out the window at the passing trees, houses, cars. A strange feeling of unreality overwhelmed me. Just a week ago, I had a normal life. Husband, house, business, plans for the future. And now I'm going into the unknown, running from danger, from the past, from everything that was my life. An hour later, we arrived at the airport. The driver led me not through the main entrance, but through a service entrance showing some kind of ID to the security guard. Inside, in a small waiting room VIP terminal, Vera met me. You made it just in time, she said with relief. The police have already started searching, but it won't occur to them to look for you here. Where are we flying to? I asked, following her to the Czech encounter, first to Kazakhstan and from there to Europe. I have new documents for you, a new identity. To start, you will be Elena Solovayova, a business consultant from Novosibirsk. She handed me a passport, driver's license, and credit card, all in the name of Elena Solovayova. The documents looked authentic, professionally made. How did you manage to organize all this so quickly? I wondered, examining the passport, where there was my photo but a different name. I have connections, Vera smiled mysteriously, and I planned this in advance in case the situation becomes too dangerous. I didn't know whether to thank her or suspect her of some hidden motives, but I had no choice. I trusted her completely, entrusting my fate into her hands. We were taken through an accelerated procedure of registration and passport control, and soon we were sitting in business class of a plane heading to Astana. I looked out the window at the lights of the city, which I was leaving, perhaps forever, and felt a strange mixture of fear, relief, and sadness. What will happen next? I asked Vera as the plane began to accelerate down the runway. Next will begin your new life, Ksenia, she answered, looking me in the eye, and I promise that I will do everything possible to ensure that in this new life you are safety. The plane took off from the ground, carrying me away from the past, from danger, from betrayal, to a future, which was uncertain but in which, at least, I was alive. But as we ascended into the sky, I couldn't shake the strange feeling that something in this story still didn't add up. Something important was slipping away from my understanding, and that something could turn out to be the key to unlocking the whole story of my fall and rebirth. The flight to Astana passed in relative silence. Vera was engrossed in her laptop, occasionally answering phone calls in a quiet voice. I, on the other hand, was trying to get used to my new name, new identity. Elena Solovayova, a business consultant from Novosibirsk, single, independent, confident woman, full of opposite of that lost, devoted Xenia, which I was just a week ago. We spent only a few hours in Astana, waiting for a connecting flight to Paris. Vera continued to organize something on the phone, and I sat in the airport cafe, watching the rushing passengers and thinking about how quickly life can change. How from a prosperous woman, confident in the future, one can turn into a fugitive living under someone else's name. In Paris, we were met by another person from Vera's team, a young man with the appearance of a typical European. He escorted us to a small hotel in the center of the city, where rooms were booked for us. Here you can relax and get used to the new identity, said Vera when we settled in my room. Tomorrow we will meet with a person who will help us with further plans. What plans? I asked, feeling tired from the flight and constant tension. I have acquaintances in Spain who can offer you work and housing. A small town on the coast, tourist business. There you will be safe, you can start all over again. I nodded, although anxiety was growing inside me. Everything was happening too fast, too smoothly, as if Vera had planned in advance every step, every detail of my disappearance. But why? What is her real motivation? Vera, I began cautiously, why are you helping me so much? This is more than just guilt or empathy. She looked at me with a long gaze, as if deciding how much truth I'm ready to hear. You're right, she finally said. There are other reasons, including personal ones. My brother, he's not just a criminal boss. He's a dangerous man who has ruined many lives, including mine. When I saw that he was going to do the same to you, I couldn't stand aside. What did he do to you? I asked. I feel that this is important for understanding the whole situation. Vera sighed. This is a long and unpleasant story. Let's just say he used me for his schemes, for money laundering, for connections with legal business. When I tried to get out of the game, he threatened me, my loved ones. I was his prisoner for many years, until I learned to play by his rules and at the same time maintain some freedom of action. And now you are using me to take revenge on him. I couldn't hide the bitterness in my voice. No, not for revenge. Vera shook her head. For justice. Your husband and my brother worked together, deceived you, and planned your murder. Couldn't allow that. And now, helping you disappear, I not only save you from danger, but also deprive them both of what they wanted. Artem will not get the insurance, and my brother will not get his money. This is not revenge, it is justice. Her words sounded sincere, but something still didn't give me peace. Some element of the puzzle that I was missing. What if I don't want to disappear, but to fight? I asked suddenly. What if I want to come back and achieve justice not only for myself, but also for other victims of your brother and people like Artem? Vera looked at me in surprise. This is a very risky path, Ksenia. My brother has connections in the police, in the judicial system. Even with the evidence that you have, achieving his arrest and conviction will be extremely difficult. But not impossible, I retorted. Especially if I have help from the inside, someone who knows all the schemes, all the connections. You mean me? Vera looked anxious. Are you suggesting I go against my own brother? Isn't that what you're already doing by helping me? I asked. Isn't that what you want? Justice. Vera was silent for a long time, pondering my words. It's dangerous, she finally said. For you, for me, for everyone who will be involved. Life is dangerous in general, I shrugged, but I prefer fighting to fleeing, especially now that I have almost nothing left to lose. Almost. She raised an eyebrow. I still have my dignity, my determination, and my future, I replied. And I want that future to be built on truth and justice, and not on flight and fear. Vera looked at me with a new expression, a mixture of respect and concern. You are a strong woman, Ksenia, stronger than I thought, and maybe you're right. Maybe it's time not only to save individual victims, but also to stop those who create them. Then you're with me. I held out my hand to her. She hesitated for a moment, then firmly shook my palm. Yes, I'm with you, but we will need a plan. A careful, safe plan. All night we discussed the details of our plan. Vera told me everything she knew about her brother's business, about his connections, about weaknesses. I shared information about Artem's financial schemes, about the evidence that the police already had. By morning, we had a plan, risky, complex, requiring perfect coordination and precise execution. But it was a plan that could lead not only to justice for me, but also to the collapse of a criminal empire that destroyed many lives. The first step, Vera said, when we finished discussing, is to contact Detective Igor Sergeyevich and inform him about our plan. Without the support of the police, we have no chance. Do you think he'll agree? I asked, remembering the skepticism of the detective regarding Vera's methods. If we present compelling evidence and a clear plan, he will have no choice. This is his chance to shut down a major case and get promoted. I nodded, feeling how adrenaline and determination displace fear and uncertainty. Then let's begin. We have a lot of work to do. The following days were filled with intense work. We contacted Detective Igor Sergeyevich, who, after the initial shock and a barrage of reproaches addressed to me for escaping from custody, agreed to listen to our plan. Through a secure communication channel, we sent him all the evidence we had collected, all the details of the criminal scheme, all the names and connections. The detective was impressed by the volume and quality of information. This could be a breakthrough in the case, he said after examining the materials. But the operation plan is extremely risky. You are putting yourself in immense danger. I have no choice, I replied. It's the only way to get my life back and ensure justice. After lengthy discussions and adjustments, the detective agreed to support our plan. The key element was using Vera as a double agent. She had to return to Russia and convince her brother that I was hiding in Europe but ready to return and pay Artem's debt in exchange for security guarantees. This was supposed to give the police time to prepare an operation to detain the entire criminal group. I remained in Paris under the protection of Interpol agents, with whom Detective Igor Sergeyevich collaborated. Vera returned to Russia, entering into a dangerous game with her own brother.